The axillary artery, course, relations, and branches. Welcome back to our free important class. I am AI, your expert medical education tutor, presented by Pharmacist Mohammad Nadeem Abbasi. Today, we're going to break down complex upper limb anatomy so it sticks in your brain permanently. Let's get right into it.
एक्सिलरी आर्टरी के 6 ब्रांचेस के नाम याद करने बैठोगे तो हमेशा भूल जाओगे। एग्जाम हॉल में समझ नहीं आता कि कौन सी ब्रांच किस पार्ट से निकल रही थी। बट व्हाट इफ आई टेल यू एक सिंपल 1 2 3 रूल है जिससे आपको सारी ब्रांचेस हमेशा के लिए याद हो जाएंगे। आज हम एक्सिलरी आर्टरी के कोर्स, रिलेशंस और उसके ब्रांचेस को हमेशा के लिए दिमाग में फिट करने वाले हैं।
So let's start with the big picture. The axillary artery doesn't just, magically appear out of nowhere. It's actually a direct continuation of the subclavian artery. It officially gets the name axillary artery right as it emerges from under the outer border of the first rib. Then it travels down through the axilla, and the exact moment it crosses the lower border of the teres major muscle, boom, it terminates. Or, well, actually, scratch that. It just changes its name to become the brachial artery. It's basically one long continuous highway that just gets new names depending on the neighborhood it's driving through. Now, how do we chop up this long arterial highway to actually make it easy to study? Enter the pectoralis minor muscle. This muscle is an absolute game changer. It's the great anatomical divider. It crosses right in front of the vessel and cleanly slices our study of the axillary artery into 3 very distinct, totally manageable segments. The first part is proximal to the muscle. The second part sits directly deep or posterior to it, and the third part pops out distal to the muscle. Okay, so how does this tie into our magic rule? Let's kick off the super simple 1, 2, 3 rule. We start with the first part of the artery, and logically enough, this first part gives off exactly one branch.
And here is that one single branch, the superior thoracic artery. You'll notice it originates right from the anterior surface of that first part of the axillary artery, perfectly proximal to the pectoralis minor. So what's its job? It supplies the upper regions of the medial and anterior axillary walls, basically taking care of the pectoralis muscles in that area. One part, one branch. Easy, right?
Let's keep this momentum going. We move down to the second part of the artery, that segment hiding directly deep behind the pectoralis minor muscle. And following our rule, the second part gives off exactly 2 branches. Let's map these 2 out. First up, we've got the thoracoacromial trunk. This one's pretty feisty. It pierces right through the clavipectoral fascia and just bursts into 4 smaller branches to supply the shoulder region. Then, taking a totally different path, is the lateral thoracic artery. It beautifully traces the lower, infralateral border of the pectoralis minor muscle all the way down to supply the serratus anterior and breast tissue. So that's 2 branches for part 2 locked in. Finally, we round out the rule with the third part of the artery. This is the segment running distal to the lower border of the pectoralis minor right before it turns into the brachial artery. And, as you've definitely guessed by now, the third part predictably gives off exactly 3 branches. Let's break these last 3 down. First, we have the absolutely massive subscapular trunk. This is actually the largest branch of the entire axillary artery, and it runs right down the posterior wall of the axilla. Alongside it are the final 2 branches, the anterior and posterior humeral circumflex arteries. These 2 literally wrap around the surgical neck of the humerus, linking up or anastomosing with each other to form a complete arterial circle right around the bone. So, the 1, 2, 3 rule is down. But what about the actual names? Because when you're sitting in that exam hall, you need to pull them up instantly. Well, take a breath because I'm about to give you an unforgettable, high-yield mnemonic that will lock these 6 branches into your permanent memory forever. Ready? Screw the lawyer, save a patient. Let's perfectly align our 1, 2, 3 rule right up against this mnemonic. Part 1 has 1 branch, superior thoracic, that's screw. Part 2 has 2 branches, thoracoacromial, that's the, and lateral thoracic, which is lawyer. Part 3 has 3 branches, subscapular stands for save, anterior circumflex is A, and posterior circumflex is patient. If you combine the spatial 1, 2, 3 rule with this exact mnemonic, you'll instantly know the origin and name of every single branch. You are literally never going to get a multiple choice question wrong on this again. Clinical significance. Why this anatomy matters in the ER. Let's pivot from exam memorization to some high-yield, real-world application. Why does this exact anatomy matter when you're working a shift in the emergency room? Well, this area is incredibly vulnerable during trauma. Imagine a patient comes in with an anterior shoulder dislocation. The humeral head is violently forced out of the socket and pushed forward. Or maybe they have a severe proximal humerus fracture. That displaced bone can brutally stretch and traumatize the third part of the axillary artery. Not only can this cause an arterial tear leading to severe upper limb ischemia, which means a loss of blood flow, leaving a cold, pale arm, but it can also completely crush the posterior cord of the brachial plexus, which sits intimately right behind the vessel here. It's a true anatomical danger zone. But, the human body is absolutely amazing. Let's talk about the biological miracle that is collateral circulation. What if the axillary artery gets completely blocked, or a surgeon has to ligate it between its first and third parts? Is the arm just doomed? No way! Blood flow is cleverly redirected. It bypasses the blockage by flowing from the branches of the subclavian artery down through this massive built-in vascular network on the back of the shoulder blade called the scapular anastomosis. From there, it dumps right back into the third part of the axillary artery via that massive subscapular branch we talked about. The arm gets saved. Is 1, 2, 3 rule ने आपका काम आसान किया या नहीं? मुझे नीचे कमेंट करके बताओ. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button क्योंकि upper limb के सारे high yield topics इसी channel पर आने वाले हैं. तब तक के लिए, keep studying, keep rocking.
And just think about that. The human body has built-in biological backup generators to save our limbs. What other hidden lifelines are waiting inside you to be discovered?